Marshall, if I think about some of the muscles of leadership that I've built, particularly in this year and in the crisis that we face in these trying times, growing up as a leader, a lot of us have always focused on the outcomes first. We talked about the outcomes, and then we would begin a conversation with a deck and a spreadsheet and talk about how we got there. But what I've discovered this year that needs to go to the back, and we need to talk about people. We need to show care for people and to really ask how they're doing, get a pulse check, because it all begins with that. And I'd like to get your thoughts on this idea of empathy and caring for people and how that plays into the role of the leader.
Well, I've been studying a lot about the term empathy and the concept of empathy. And now I realize that empathy has many positive qualities, yet empathy can also have negative qualities. So rather than talk about empathy in a kind of monolithic way, I'm going to talk about it in a more nuanced way. Now, first, what do I mean by empathy? I'm going to put it quite simply. That's putting yourself in someone else's shoes, seeing the world from their perspective, understanding, feeling what it's like to be them. And I'm going to talk about empathy from four different dimensions, four different types of empathy. The first type of empathy I'm going to talk about is called the empathy of understanding. And what does that mean? I kind of understand where you're coming from. I understand why you're doing what you're doing. Now, on the surface, you might say, well, gee, that's very good. Why are advertisers effective? They understand why we do what we do, and they're able to manipulate us. Fantastic at this cognitive empathy. In other words, cognitive empathy for the empathy of understanding. Advertisers, propaganda. And there's a book called Why Women Marry Psychopaths. And one reason is the psychopath is typically very good at the empathy of understanding. They know how to manipulate people. They don't have a guilt. They don't have a conscience. They understand how people work, and they can use this understanding to manipulate others. I'll use myself as an example. Some of these types of empathy I score higher or lower for myself. I score very high on this, and I have a gift. I'm sure you've seen this. I have the ability to see things in others they can't see in themselves. And I'm very good at that. I've been trained in that. I've had years of experience doing that. And that, as a coach, can be a very positive thing. It can help people look into a window that's different, a mirror that's different. It could be a parlor trick, though. It could be used just to manipulate people. The second type of empathy, number one, is the empathy of understanding. Number two is the empathy of feeling. In other words, I can feel your pain. Some people literally can feel the pain of others. When you experience pain, I too experiencing your pain. In our mind, we have something called mirror neurons, and we all mirror other people's behavior. I learned this from my friend Martin Lindstrom. Some of us, more than others, really feel other people's pain. You might say, well, isn't that a good thing? On the other hand, if you're going to be sad every time someone else is sad, you're going to be sad for a long time. My friend Hortense Le-Gentil wrote a book called Aligned. She's writing a new book now called Unlocked. And in her book, she talks about empathy. And she says empathy is kind of joining with that other person. And she says it can be a good thing as a coach to join with that other person, but you have to back away. Because if you don't back away, you can't help that other person while you are that other person at the same time. Third one, kind of compassion or caring, the empathy of caring, a little bit different. The empathy of feeling is, I literally feel your pain. The empathy of caring is, I don't feel your pain, yet I identify with you, I sympathize with you, and I'm sad because you're sad. I'm happy because you're happy. So your experiences, I care about you, and these caring moments, they give me empathy with you, the empathy of caring. Why can't the doctor operate on the family member? They care too much. They care too much. It blocks their objectivity. I'm in a class with two of the greatest hedge fund managers in history. So one guy is like a multi-billionaire and the other's worth 3 times as much as he is. Poor guy says to the rich guy, why don't you have a fund? You could raise billions in 5 minutes. People love you. Why don't you have a fund? You know what he said? I started caring too much. I started caring too much. He said, when I was young, look, I have made billions and billions of dollars. Everyone knows that. What people don't talk about, I've lost billions and billions of dollars. I may have made 52% of everything I invested. That means I lost 48%. And he said, when I was young, I didn't care. I didn't care. But as I've grown older, I feel like a boxer that gets hit in the side. It doesn't knock me out, but it adds up. It starts hurting. And I started thinking, these are people's retirement accounts. These are older people that are counting on me. And you know what he said? I became much less effective. I really couldn't take risks anymore. I actually became much less effective. And now I only invest my own money. We think about caring in a positive way. And obviously, it's got many good qualities to caring. Yet, back to my friend Entente, you've got to back away. And the final type of empathy is the empathy of doing. And Paul, I've heard you talk about this a lot. You need help. I'm going to jump in and help you. Well, you think, God, it's great. You're really trying to help people. Could be great. But one of the things in your book you talk about is enabling. Well, when you have a little too much of this empathy of doing, you can create dependency. Right. You can create a situation where other people depend on you for the answers. So if we look at the concept of empathy, as you can see, my first thought is, gee, this is a totally positive concept, empathy. It sounds nice. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Really get beneath that. The types of empathy, understanding or cognitive empathy. Do I understand where you're coming from? Feeling. Do I feel what you're feeling? Caring. Do I care about what's going on with you? And finally, doing. Am I doing something to act on this? One of the nicest people I've ever met, she said, I'm a fixer. I've created dependency in my own family. I'm always fixing everyone's problems. One of the people in a group that I talk with every week is Telly Leon. Telly is a Broadway star. He actually played the role of Aladdin on Aladdin 1,000 times on Broadway. Wow. He's a great guy. He and I are working together on Friday with the hospital. And he talked to me a lot about empathy, and he gave me the best formula that I've ever heard for empathy. He said, empathy means being where you are now and relating to the people you're with now in a way that's the most positive for them. Don't carry it with you. And as my friend Atan said, you've got to take yourself out of that situation where you've been, put yourself into that situation where you are. And my friend Telly, playing the role of Aladdin on Broadway, he said in 90 minutes, I may have to change my emotional reaction 9 times. As we journey through life, breathing, starting over in each situation, having the discipline to let go of the past, let it go and say, I'm here now. And realizing when we think of empathy, whose needs am I taking care of? Is this empathy really about something for them? Or is this just selfish and focused on myself? A great way to challenge ourselves, and to me, a much more nuanced way to look at empathy and ask ourselves, how am I being the person that I can be to help the people I'm with? Final story. One of the people in my weekend group is a great athlete. And we discuss our week, and I said, how you doing with your wife? And he said, well, not so good. He said, she wanted me to spend a half hour with her. And then at the end of the half hour, she said, I wasn't very present. But he said, oh, well, I was kind of tired. And I said, well, that's interesting because I went to the National Basketball Association final game when you played. And, there was about 2 minutes left. And the coach, who was Phil Jackson at the time, coach of the Lakers, called timeout. And did you go to Phil Jackson and say, Phil, I'm tired? Yeah, I'm too tired here, Phil. I said, well, take me out, Phil. I'm too tired for that last 2 minutes. He said, no. And he said, how tired were you? He said, I was completely exhausted. Yeah, you're too tired to spend a half hour talking with your wife? Well, he said, good point.
That's such a powerful, fresh perspective on empathy. Like you, I assumed it's kind of, it's a positive thing. We've been measured as leaders, by the way, on a competency, particularly in recent years, around empathy. Leader as empathetic, but it can also have a negative impact. It's also a burden. It can be a burden, and it can also, as you say, you become enabler in a negative way. Hey, Marshall, thank you so much. A power-packed conversation. Always enjoy spending time with you. And I got lots of golden nuggets. All the best.
Thank you.
Thank you.